overseas and on different time zones and aren't able to join us tonight, but we're interested in finding out more about teaching with primary sources. So Erin Hunt is with the Colorado Rural Partnership. It's a grant-funded program based at the University of Northern Colorado, and it's a grant from the Library of Congress entitled Teaching with Primary Sources. And I've had the pleasure of working with and known Erin for quite a few years now. We met through our graduate programs at the University of Northern Colorado. Erin brings lots of experience in development and in teaching in the K-12 environment, and I am just very glad to have you, Erin, to do this presentation tonight. So
thank you.
With that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, I'm going to try to now switch to putting on a PowerPoint here, so you'll have to bear with me. I'm not exactly familiar with. Aha. Oh, okay. And of course, it's the new version of Microsoft, so now I'm really lost. Oh wow, I've already started out bad. I've already created a new slide. Oh, slideshow. Let's see if that works from the beginning. Okay. Well, a little about me. Cindy already gave me a nice can you see this? Cindy?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, because my whole screen went to the slide. So I'm like, oh. I'm an instructional designer for the Teaching with Primary Sources grant. Quite a few states now have Teaching with Primary Sources grants, and they're from the Library of Congress. One of the reasons we are looking now at working with Arizona is that we got a regional extension, which is going to allow us to grant mini grants to the Four Corners area, including Arizona. So that's one of the reasons we're interested in working with your university. Prior to this, I spent 3 years in professional development with Centennial BOCES, and prior to that, I was a middle and high school computer and technology teacher, and that's my little avatar. We've been doing a lot with Web 2.0 here at UNC, so it's the new thing. And my email's right here. I'll also have some handouts where I'll point you to a website with those, and my office phone number if you have questions. So first I want to talk about what I was planning on going through tonight. Number one is what are primary sources. A lot of people don't know what a primary source is, so it's real important that I get that clear. Also, how do you use the Library of Congress website? And then finally, what resources are available to the teachers?
And there's one hand raised, Erin. Tammy has.
Okay.
Tammy's going to jump in.
Okay, yeah, because I lost my whole little screen here, and I'm hearing beeps. What's the question?
Dave's having problems being able to see the whole slide without scrolling around, and I don't even see a scroll bar with the new setup that you have on the screen, so I'm not quite sure how to get him where he needs to be. Amber's having the same problem.
Should I not run the slides? Is that the problem?
You know what I did up in the upper right-hand corner, there's a maximize button, and I clicked on that, and then I was able to see most of the slide. Does that help for those having problems seeing it? This is another option how you have it right now, Erin. It's pretty easy to see.
Okay.
It seems to be helping.
Is that true? Can you
John
smile, put a smiley face up if you can see it now?
And Cindy, I've lost the entire Illuminate tool, so I can't find those
It's not
at all.
in the. They got to be in the background if you're still connected. But we can see your application sharing just fine right now.
Okay. Okay. So I'm sorry. I've never used this system, so it's a little different. Okay. So do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. So let's look at really quickly what are primary sources. When we talk about this teaching with primary sources, what does that mean? Just a real quick definition. Primary sources are seen as original materials of history, so they can be eyewitness accounts, created by people that were actually there, and created at or near the time period being studied. Oops, typo. So on the Library of Congress, what they've got is they have tons of primary source files that are digitized. And those come in a variety of different file types, I should say. First, there's documents. There's public and official documents. They have all the congressional proceedings. They've got the rough draft of the Declaration of Independence, so more official government documents. There's also personal documents. One of the neatest things up there is there's thousands of letters. For instance, there's an entire correspondence between Alexander Graham Bell and Helen Keller. I didn't even know they had a relationship, but they had kind of a father-daughter relationship. So you can access all their personal letters. There's a lot of multimedia files. So all of Thomas Edison's early films are up there. There's also a lot of music from just a variety of time periods, different areas of the United States. Speeches. They have even some of like Winston Churchill's speeches during World War II. So things like that. Oral histories. There's an entire collection of slave narratives after the Civil War. Some people went around in the early days of audio and documented basically the oral history of a lot of slaves, and those are just intriguing to listen to. There's tons of visuals up there. So there's art, there are posters, political cartoons, ads, thousands upon thousands, millions probably of photographs, and then tons of maps. So that's just a kind of a snapshot of what the Library of Congress has on its website. Okay, first I just want to really quickly address what a primary source is versus a secondary source. A primary source is something that has to be created in the time under study. It's an original work. It should be done by someone who witnessed or wrote close to an event. So what you're looking at right here is a page. It was a published book, and it's in the rare book collection at the Library of Congress, but Christopher Columbus wrote this. So the translation is, "There I found many islands filled with innumerable people, and I have taken possession of them all, ... That is Christopher Columbus in his own words, and that is a primary source. Now, on the other hand, a secondary source would be something like this. This is a painting that's used in textbooks all over America. It was done, though, in 1893. So it is definitely a secondary source about an event. Now, secondary sources can also be primary sources. So, for instance, in this case, if I was studying painting in the 1900s, well, in the 19th century, excuse me, this would be now a primary source. It depends on how you look at it. So, for instance, most newspapers are secondary sources. They're getting the information secondhand. But if I was studying journalism or trying to get a beat on the culture at that time period, then technically it would be also a primary source. So that can cause a little bit of confusion. So really quickly, and you may be able to see the answers on this, but I want you to look at this and think which of these words describe primary sources. Because some people assume that a primary source has to be, for instance, a government document, and that's not necessarily true. So in this case, a primary source does not have to be accurate. In fact, many primary sources are great at showing us a perspective, one perspective. So you can usually find a primary source that will completely contradict that other primary source. So it's great to encourage critical thinking skills with students because they are opinionated, and a lot of times they are not necessarily true or objective. Primary sources are not analyzed. They're the raw material. You have to do the analyzing to connect the dots. Number 3, primary sources are original. Number 4, they should be eyewitness accounts. Number 5, they are not official. Some of them are, but many of them are not. They're from the everyday person. They were not officially published, so they don't have that official air about them. Number 6, once again, they're not interpreted for you. You have to do the interpretation. Number 7, they did survive from the past. Number 8, they are not necessarily respected sources. Number 9, they are direct evidence. Number 10, they are firsthand. And number 11, they are not condensed. You know, you're looking at, it's like looking at raw footage that hasn't been edited yet. And so this is just a quick Library of Congress definition of what a primary source is. So primary sources are original items, records that have survived from the past, such as clothing, letters, photographs, manuscripts. They were part of a direct personal experience or event. And just a quick overview on why it's so important to use primary sources in teaching. And it doesn't matter whether you're teaching K-12 students or undergrads or graduate students. These are still valid learning events that you can utilize. They help to develop critical thinking skills. It creates an understanding that all history is local. It's easier to acquire empathy for the human condition and human experience from these. Like I said, a lot of them are not official. They're your everyday human beings' perspective on things. So it helps to understand the feelings and emotions that went into some of these events. They're very useful to consider different points of view in analysis, and you can understand the continuum of history with them. And I'll point you later to a handout that has these kind of mapped out as to why it's important to use primary sources. I'm kind of moving quickly through this. Normally this is a 4-hour to 15-hour workshop we do. And the real important thing here is, until you can really understand what a primary source is, I need you to know where to find them so you can really start looking at them and thinking, oh, this is what's there, and this is the breadth of what the Library of Congress has. So I really want to take you now into actually searching for them and looking at the Library of Congress website and really discussing what the website has for you. So now's where I'm at a loss here. Oh, no, I'm still not getting the Illuminate stuff. Oh, I found it. I found you all.
Very well.
For a while I was like, am I just talking to myself? They all disappeared. And okay.
Well, we're all listening.
Sorry about that. Okay, I'm going to quickly, and we discovered the other day that I have to do this through application sharing to show you how to search. Otherwise it doesn't function. So I'm going to go ahead and take you to the Library of Congress website, which I lost my browsers there and that me clicking around trying to find Illuminate. Okay. So there we go. Can you see this browser window now?
I can. Can everybody smile if they can see the browser window?
And I'll
yeah, it looks like we have quite a few smiles.
Oh, good. Okay. So I'm going to try to keep this small so people don't have to scroll so much, too. That seems to be causing problems. So can you see this new browser window that opened up, Cindy?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Okay. The Library of Congress website, it's an easy website to remember. It's www.loc.gov. So, and that will take you right here, which is to the front page of the website. When you first look at this website, it constantly changes, and that will just give you a notion. If you start going here maybe once every 2 weeks, you'll be able to quickly see how much the library is doing and getting out on the web for teachers to use. For instance, over here where it says News from the Library on the right-hand side, right under here there's a little thing that says Historic Baseball Resources. They just added that 2 days ago, and it's an entire collection of historic baseball resources that's now up there and easy to navigate and get through. Over here under Library Highlights, this Library of Congress experience, brand new. It's supposed to open up, technically it's opening up April 12th, so you're going to see a lot of new materials come through there. So this is a very live and active website that changes a lot. I want to really go over these up here, these categories where we see American Memory, Exhibitions, Thomas, Global Gateway, and Veterans History, because those are 5 big, I don't know, portals, I guess you could call them, from this website that are really important as far as finding primary sources. First, Veterans History was a project that a lot of it occurred because of Ken Burns used a lot of this for those movies he just made recently. And that's a very active project that's still ongoing. So we've even worked with a lot of teachers who have gone ahead and used their students to go out and interview these veterans and record their history. So I'll just click on that real quick and show you. We have a hand raised, I know.
Okay, great. Do you want to take the question, Erin? Yeah,
I can't hear it.
Go ahead, John. John, can you vocalize your question?
Or he could type it.
Okay, go ahead, Erin, and then hopefully John will. Oh, have you used the webcast?
The webcast through this system or through the library?
Through the, John, can you clarify through the Library of Congress, through the Library of Congress?
I've listened to some of them. They actually do quite a few different webcasts. They have authors come in and do webcasts and everything. It's pretty fascinating.
Great, thanks.
Okay. So this is the front page for the Veterans History Project. It's, like I said, this is a real growing area of the website because they're trying to mobilize students right now to go out and collect a lot of these veterans' history. So right now, of course, on the website they're featuring women because it's Women's History Month. So I'm not going to mention much about this, but if you're interested in this or would like to do something like this with your classroom, all of the information about the project is right here. Now, Global Gateway is kind of twofold. One is it represents a lot of the foreign language and international sources that you can find on the Library of Congress. Whoops. And the other, and that's through, a lot of that is through collaborative digital libraries. Some of these have collections where, for instance, it would be in French and in English, or in Spanish and in English. Yeah, they do have stuff for little ones, Amber, and I'll definitely show you that in a minute. And then they also link to Portals to the World, links to libraries all over the world. So for people who do anything with different cultures, different countries, there's a lot under Global Gateway you would want to look at. Thomas is something I don't do much with. It basically has the entire congressional record in it. So if you want to look at to see exactly what happened with a law, or even you can go, for instance, on the House floor right now. You can see what's going on, which nothing would be going on right now. But you could, during the day, bring your students in and see exactly what was happening in real time. Well, they update it like every 15 minutes, I should say. Now, exhibitions I really wanted to show you. And in a minute, I'm going to let you go and explore some of the exhibitions. Basically, I don't know, has anyone in this class presentation been to the Library of Congress? Just out of curiosity. No, I don't see anything. If you go to Washington, D.C., it really is a fascinating place to go. It's the Jefferson Building. Not only is it gorgeous, but they take a lot of these primary sources and create really nice museum quality exhibits. And so what the exhibitions portion of the website is the exhibitions basically are the web versions of those real-life exhibits. So for instance, right now they have Exploring the Early Americas. I was just out there in January and that's what I got to go see. And so I'm going to click on this and you can see what these look like. Unlike a lot of the primary sources on the Library of Congress website, these are well put together. There's expert commentary. Most of them have interactions. For instance, well, they don't use Flash. They use some other kind of technology that Microsoft has created. I'm not sure. I can't remember what the name is, but they have interactions that you can explore, that you could have students explore. Oh, Silverlight. I've never heard of that, but that's what they're using. I'll pull one of these up. So it, not only has the primary source, but your students can actually do some manipulative things with it. These are really interesting. This was a map that was created in 1507, and if you look on the left-hand side of the map right in here, you can see it's the first map that had any pictorial view of the New World on it. But that was so controversial that the same company in 1516 did not put that on their 1516 map because people were so upset by it. And that's part of the problem with the Library of Congress. When you start looking at these, you get a little bit lost because everything seems interesting. So is this library, I'm getting the question, is this library also a museum? The Library of Congress? The Library of Congress is the largest library in the world, actually. And much of what they house would be considered archives or primary sources. So when they pull them out and display them, it is more like what you would think of as a regular museum. It's not like walking around and seeing tons of books on shelves. While they have your typical library setup, a lot of the sources they have are not typically found in your everyday public library. They are very special, unique, one-of-a-kind sources that you can't just go up and touch. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay, I want to get back to these exhibits though, because one of the neat things about the new exhibits is not only do they have this neat stuff the kids, well, I'm sorry, I'm a K-12 person, so I always say kids, neat things you could walk through, but they have the newer ones include lesson plans that were created by the education people at the library. So if I click on Learn More, I come down here and there's 3 lesson plans that actually go with this exhibit. And one of them goes with those maps I was just showing you. One of them goes with another set of maps that are just intriguing. The neatest lesson, though, in here is this codex one, because it's a great example of how primary sources can be used with math content.
And can you scroll that page? Okay, great.
Oh, did you want me to?
We can't quite see the links under lesson plans. It ends at lesson plans for us. So.
Oh, really? So it is tiny. My window
there
is
you go.
very
now
tiny.
We can see it. Yeah.
I'll try to remember that. Okay.
Okay.
So here's the lesson plans, and so for instance, then if you click on here, you can easily you can get a lesson plan. This one says it's for 6th to 8th grade, but all of these could be modified. And like I said, this one is actually using a primary source in math. So so that's some really good information if you work with K-12 teachers or with students.
And Erin, it's just the exhibitions that are going to have things like the lesson plan link. You were saying earlier these are the only ones that are really put together as opposed to the other ones which are really more like raw sources.
There are actually, and I'm going to show you that tonight, links to various lesson plans that are out there, but they're not in one nice, unique package like these exhibitions, and only the new exhibitions have the lesson plans. This is kind of a new thing. When you're navigating on the Library of Congress, if you go to the top, and I'm hoping you can see this because I'm realizing my window is much larger. If you go back, you see where it says Exploring the Early Americas Exhibitions. Library of Congress, that's how you can consistently navigate back. So if I go back to exhibitions, if you start looking at some of these exhibitions, the earlier ones, they do not have lesson plans. They're still developed, really well developed groups of primary sources and really intriguing to look at, but they do not necessarily have lesson plans. I'm going to have you look at these exhibitions in a minute, but one other thing I should mention is that the Library of Congress was created by librarians. So it does not work like Google. So for instance, on this page, if one of my favorite exhibitions is one on Brown versus Board of Education. So normally you'd think, oh, go and look under your B's, and you're going to find something like Brown versus Board. But in fact, because they are very into titles and alphabetizing, it is, and I'm sorry, I'm scrolling fast here, it is actually way over here under With an Even Hand. So it can be hard to find things on the Library of Congress because they are all, it's more like walking up to a card catalog where everything's alphabetized by title. So that you always need to keep that in mind as you're looking through the Library of Congress items. Now I wanted to switch. Go ahead, Cindy.
So is there a search engine, any way to search for Brown versus Board if you didn't know With an Even Hand was the actual title or beginning of the title?
You can definitely search the Library of Congress. In fact, if I'm going to scroll, don't look when I scroll. Up at the top here, and I'm not sure if you can see this, there's a little search button. And you could search right there in exhibitions. The thing is, and I'll show you this after I let you look at these. When we look at American Memory in particular, it doesn't work like, the search doesn't work like Google either. So you get some interesting results. So you could write, for instance, there's no way to do Boolean searches or to use quotations around phrases. So if I typed in Brown versus Board, I would get anything that mentioned anything about the color brown or a board of some sort, along with what I maybe was trying to find.
Great.
So it makes it a little more challenging. What I want to do is I want to go over to the little web tour, right?
Yes, yes.
And I want everyone to go ahead and I unclick tour guide, right, Cindy, to release that?
Correct.
So I'm going to unclick tour guide. I want everyone to go ahead and click on exhibitions, and then you'll have to click on the go that comes up right underneath it because they have this strange flash interface. And I want you to just to go to that page and look at some of what's there and maybe find a few that you want to click on. And I want to just give you a few minutes to look at some of those and see what kind of subjects are there. Cindy?
Yes.
Amber says open our own browser to do that. Shouldn't they just be able to do it right from the window I brought up?
Yes, they should. Can you, there should be a browser that says Web Tour at the top. Can you smile if you see that? And if you have that browser that says Web Tour up at the top, then you are free to click on that web page. Amber, do you have that? Yes, okay, so you can just go ahead and click as Erin suggested.
So you're going to click on exhibitions, and then you'll click on go when it appears down below in that picture area. Huh. You could open up your own browser. That works for me too.
And just remember it's LOC. Oh, got it. Okay, great.
Yeah, it's loc.gov.
Erin, Amber has a question. What is the earliest time the information goes back to?
Well, that's, they try to go back as far as they can. It's actually interesting, there's time periods where there wasn't much published, and so therefore you're not going to find a lot on the website. What we saw in that exhibition, some of that is some of the earliest stuff the library actually has, those 1500s. They have tons of things from the 1800s, the early 1900s. What happens, though, around the time copyright law was invented, suddenly, so if you want to find something from the 1950s, there's a good chance you're not going to find much. And it's all about copyright law at that point. And I'll show you how to look up the copyright rights and laws that are associated with each individual primary source when we look through American Memory, because it is important to know those things and to know what the copyright is on these sources.
I feel like a little kid in a candy store. I found an online exhibition of Southern California where I grew up, and I remember seeing maps when I was in school learning about California history. This is unbelievable.
And that is really, really common when people first start looking at the Library of Congress. And in a little bit when I show you how to search, I'm going to have everyone look up something personal to them. And it's amazing what people come up with. We've had people find pictures of their great-great-grandmas. So you can get lost in it really easily. Debbie, did the JPEG file open up in a different kind of software? Oh, the web. I wonder if that's something about the web tour, because it doesn't have a normal back button on it.
There is a back button at the top of the screen.
that little arrow?
Yeah, and I just clicked on a picture and then did that work? It's right on the top upper left-hand corner of the web tour screen. There's just a little back arrow and forward arrow. Do you have access to that, Debbie? You know what you could do, Erin, is click Tour Guide and type in a URL, and that should pop everybody back to your screen.
Okay, I'll go ahead and do that. I think what I'll probably do when we do American Memory is I'm going to have everyone just open up a browser window because you'll get a lot more lost in there than the exhibitions. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to can I just turn this web tour off and do the application sharing again? Because we found we couldn't search when we did that before.
Right.
So hang on. Yeah. Oh wait, is that application sharing? All right, application sharing. Okay, so now everyone's back to my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you smile if you see Erin's screen, the application sharing? Yeah, lots of smiles coming in.
Okay, so that was the exhibitions. The problem with that, of course, is compared to what's actually out there on the Library of Congress, the subjects are pretty limited. I mean, all you have is what they've displayed in their main Jefferson Building area. So most people really want to know how to get in and really see all of the digitized primary sources on the Library of Congress site. And almost all of those are through American Memory. So I'm going to click on American Memory, click on Go. Those used to be nice big buttons. You just clicked once and you were there. I'm not sure why they changed them. So American Memory has millions and millions of digitized primary sources. And this is where, if you're trying to find something real specific, it's pretty much the best place usually to go. What American Memory is it's considered a collection of collections. So basically, it's almost like there's this collection here in this room that someone donated to the library or the library acquired, and this collection over here, and there's hundreds of them, and American Memory connects them all, kind of like a portal. One of the easiest ways to find something in American Memory is through searching. And probably the best way to search, or one of the best ways, is to use this box up here. We call it top box searching. It's where you search all of those collections in American Memory. There are some problems, though, with searching the Library of Congress because, like I mentioned before, it was created through an old library catalog system that kind of was converted to the web, and it doesn't necessarily work like we would want it to. It doesn't work like a web browser. It's also really important to get really specific about your terms. So I'm just going to give you an example. I was in a classroom a few months ago, and the students were working on a westward expansion project, and they really wanted a picture of a covered wagon to illustrate part of their report. So they typed in wagon, as any good Google generation student will do, and they hit search, and this is what the kind of results they're going to get. Okay, this is what the search page looks like in American Memory. It says it's going to display 20 results on a page, and it says that was out of 500 sources for wagon. Well, the Library of Congress website stops searching at 5,000. So that is not near how many primary sources had something about wagon in them. When it comes up, if you look right here, it says display. It defaults to list view, which gives you the titles. And it also tells you what collection they're in. Now remember, I said American Memory is a collection of collections. So for instance, these two sources down here are in the African American sheet music collection. Some sources down here are in the American Woman collection. They wanted a picture though, so one of the easiest ways to see what you've got as far as visuals go is to click on Gallery View. And what Gallery View does is it gives you these nice thumbnails. So obviously some of the items in, if it's a multi-format, it's usually like an audio file, and you just get this picture comes up because there's nothing really visual there. But otherwise, you can see a quick snapshot of what we got from our wagon search. Now, I'm not seeing a lot about covered wagons in here. So being the good middle school students they were, they went back up here, and in American Memory, you always, here's our top box again, search all collections right at the top. So now they're going to type in covered wagon. Hit search and see what happens this time. Well, we're doing better. We got one of 20 on this page of over 1,000. So now we only have 1,068 to go through. As you can see in this list view, most of these up at the top right now are from the collection, the Chicago Daily News. I'm going to click on Gallery View. And I am getting some covered wagons now, but I'm still getting a lot of other things that maybe aren't necessarily pertinent. And what you find when you're searching the Library of Congress is you really need to know what you're talking about. So in this case, the students had to sit down and actually think, what do we need? And they were really looking for a Conestoga wagon. And now we're going to get better results. So now we have 27 results. If I click on Gallery View, I should get things even better suited to my westward expansion project. So for instance, here's a good one right here. Hopefully everyone can see that. I can click on it from this thumbnail, and I am taken to these not very attractive web pages. These were built quite a while ago. The library has looked into reformatting some of these pages, but the expense required was massive, so they've just kind of left them as is. So this is my bibliographic page. On that page, I can see the title is A Pioneer Family. I get when it was published. They're not quite sure, but around 1870. Sometimes there's a summary, sometimes there's not. I get a list of the subjects that it's filed under. The digital ID. To get a big image of this picture, I need to click on it. And now you can really get a good image. Sometimes when you click on these, there's a little link that says large format TIFF version. That is the best one to print. In this case, we don't have that. So, but this is going to print okay for classroom use. But that's my image. Earlier when we were talking about copyright, here's a link for rights and reproductions. Sometimes it gives you decent information, sometimes it doesn't really. I'm going to click on it and we'll read it. This collection, by the way, that I found is housed in the Denver Public Library in Colorado. Some of the collections in American Memory are not actually housed at the Library of Congress. So in this one it says it encourages uses of these materials under Fair Use Clause. The images may be used for educational, scholarly, and private study, and a credit line should be used with each item. Now, in this case, you're pretty much okay as a teacher to probably bring them into a classroom, print some copies and bring them in. You're okay probably to put it in a PowerPoint presentation. Let's say your students did an incredible PowerPoint presentation though and you wanted to republish it up to the school website. Now you're in a different territory because technically you're kind of republishing it. And it's a very gray area, fair use. I will show you some sources later that absolutely say right on there, there is no known copyright, you can use this for anything. They have sources like that within the collections. And then you know you're okay. But something that says it's okay for fair use, when you start talking about republishing it, you really want to consider how it's being used. So that's just a little bit on how you can use that top box search in American Memory. There's a few other things you can do in American Memory to make that search go even better. And that's to use the browse functions. So if you look up here, there's this nice button, so I can click Browse. And Browse gives me a few different options. I can browse by topic. I can browse collections by time period. So you can, someone was asking about time periods. This is a real quick way to see what they have in each of these different time periods. I can browse collections containing, and this is where I get into file types. This is a really great one to use because sometimes when we use primary sources, people get real stuck on manuscripts or journals or letters or photographs, and we forget about some of the other media that's available to us. So for instance, song, sheet music and song was a powerful way to spread messages and communicate at one time. So I'm going to just illustrate that, searching through that. So if I clicked on that through Browse, I get this Search Selected Collections box. That means there's 8 collections here that have sheet music. And if I type something into this box, I'm only searching those 8 collections. So it makes my search go much quicker. So I'm going to just type in women's rights, because this pulls up some fun things. I only pulled up 5 results. They're all sheet music. So your search is going to be a lot more effective if you use Browse. I'm going to just pull up one of these to look at. Once again, the nature of primary sources. This is a song called There's a Queer Time Coming, Boys. And a lot of these, if I click and look at this, it can be really hard to read these, the digitized version. Here's where I can get to a higher image, quality image, which would probably print well and be readable. But the Library of Congress tries in a lot of these cases to give us a transcript. So if I look down here, they transcripted out the lyrics for this. So here's just, it says, there's a queer time coming, boys, a queer time coming, when the women will have got their rights and rule the world in black dress tights. So this is just an example of how you can utilize these different media and different communication methods with your students to really look at what the culture was like at the time. You know, here's your, and all our liquor done away in the queer time that's coming. You know, so they're talking about the whole Prohibition era. So it just brings it more to life when you can find some of these sources and bring them into students. Maps. They have incredible maps on the Library of Congress website. Everyone, when you look in a bit, everyone should go and try to find a map of your local area. They have these beautiful panoramic maps that you can really zoom in on. So, and then you can also browse collections by place if you want to specify whether it's international or a specific part of the U.S. So those browse areas really help find things much quicker. The other way, so to search American memory, you can use this top box, which searches it all. You can browse and specify searches. The other thing you can do is once you start really working with the Library of Congress, you will get really familiar with different collections. And so another thing you can do is actually go straight to the collections you're interested in and look in there. And I'll show you what that's like. So if I click List All Collections, and I'm not expecting you to read this, I'm just showing it to you right now so you can see the amount of what's there. These are all of the collections that American Memory connects together. There's, I should know the exact number, but I don't, I'm sorry. And just to give you an idea of how many items now are in a collection, here's one of my favorite collections. This collection has over 160,000 black and white photographs and 1,600 color photographs. So keep in mind how many collections are in American Memory and then how many items are in each collection. It's pretty massive. This collection is kind of split into two. So this is what a collection's front page looks like. Like I said, these were created quite a while ago. So they're not the prettiest things to look at. I'm going to click on this black and white photos, which takes me to the black and white portion of this. These were all created by the Farm Security Administration, Office of War Information. This was a project where basically the government sent photographers all over the United States to get a visual record of what was going on.
So are there thumbnails of all these pictures somewhere? Or is that what you're about to show us?
Yeah, and I will show you that. The one thing I want to show you about this collection is the collection homepages all also have a copyright and restriction. And this one reads a little different than the other one. It says, works created by the U.S. government employees are not eligible for copyright protection. So the Library of Congress is unaware of any copyright on any of these photos. So now, if you're looking for something to even republish, you can use these pictures in books. You'll find pictures from this collection printed and published on cards. So there is absolutely no copyright here. So I can't imagine, when we create something like a brochure or when you look at our website, most of the images come from some of these collections. Now, when I'm in an individual collection, once again, I can search through the individual collection. So here's my search. So I could just type in, let me type in dust storm on this one, given the time period it is. And if I hit search, it looks a little different than what we were seeing before, but notice it's the same concept where you have, it defaults to a list view. We can click and pull up a gallery view. And then you could select one particular picture, click on it, and you pull up that bibliographic page. I can click on the picture and pull the picture up really large. So it works it's the same. It works the same, but it looks a little different when you're doing it straight through the collections. So that's how you search through a collection. Now, browsing through the collections works a little different than the browse I just showed you. For example, if I click Browse the Subject Index, I've got, for instance, from lumber mills in Louisiana to Morocco, because it's like a card catalog. So it doesn't, browsing through these collections doesn't usually help that much unless you know the exact library subject heading that something would be filed under. So it works a little differently. It's all alphabetical order. In this case, we have a creator index because they were government photographers, so you can go directly to those photographers, and a geographic location index. Some of the collections won't have those kinds of features. So that's a little bit about how you would search through an individual collection. I'm going to show you one of the newer collections because the Library of Congress is constantly adding. So now when they create a collection, it looks like this. It looks a lot more like the front end of the website. You have a nice overview. It's well laid out. To search the collection, you would search right up here at the top. You can browse the collection. Those are down here. The browse, though, it looks better, but it's still in alphabetical order. So searching tends to be the best thing to do when you're in these individual collections. You can go to About This Collection and find the rights and reproductions, which is going to be your copyright information. So they function differently, and that's how you can tell if it's a newer collection the library's added or an older collection. Now, I was hoping to give you time to kind of search through American memory. And one of the things, I always like to have people look for a local area. For instance, if I type in, I could browse under maps. And I'm sitting in Greeley, Colorado, so I'm going to put in Greeley, Colorado. We'll see what comes up. There was only one item, so it just brought it right up. Maps are a little interesting because if you click on it, you can just keep zooming in on the map. And these panoramic maps, because they're actually huge, you can get really detailed. So they work a little bit different navigation-wise. It's kind of like looking at a MapQuest map and how you can click on it and zoom and click on it and move to a different area of the map. But what I'd like you to do is open up a browser, go to www.loc.gov, and go into American Memory and search for some local, either local from where you grew up or where you live now, some local items that you could find on American Memory. And I would suggest opening up a browser because it looks like the web tour caused some issues. So. Cindy, how do I release can I just?
What are you trying to release? Yes.
Did I just turn off that the window?
You did turn off the window to the Library of Congress website. Yes.
Okay. Okay. And let me know as you're searching through if you have any questions. It's certainly not the easiest system to navigate.
You know, Erin, I did have one question on the American Memory page. There's a link that says teachers.
Right.
What's that for?
Are you talking about this link or the one on the American Memory page? I think they go to the same place.
The one on the American Memory page, towards the bottom right-hand side.
This actually, I was gonna go through really quick too. Hopefully, do you want me to just go through that now?
No, you could wait since folks are probably out searching.
Okay. Yeah, that's to the learning page, and it's actually very useful stuff.
So are there any questions for Erin?
Well, I'm used to doing this where I'm kind of walking around and helping people find things, so. Are people able, oh, there's a hand raised.
So go ahead, David.
Yeah. I've heard that, and I haven't looked at it. I was looking through Ellen November's book. he mentions that National Archives has a website, or has sites, and a website that has a lot of primary sources that are I haven't looked at it yet, so I didn't.
You kind of went in and out there, David, but the National Archives does have a lot of primary sources as well on their website. So technically, Library of Congress writes our paychecks here, but we use a lot of the National Archives items as well. So yeah, you are correct. Library of Congress and National Archives both have a lot of great items out there. Obviously, National Archives actually houses both the real declaration, Library of Congress has the draft, and then they also, of course, have the Constitution and some other really great sources. So National Archives is a great resource as well for primary sources.
Okay, thanks.
Shall we have?
Yeah, thank you.
Erin, shall we have some folks just type into chat some different things that they found in their
Yeah,
search?
I would love to see what some of you are searching for or finding. Sometimes one of the first things you find is frustration when you start searching on the site, because it is easy to get lost. So yeah, feel free to let us know about that. And for those of you who are looking at maps, of course there's those nice little browse and zoom tools, but there's also, you'll notice there's ways to download the entire map file. And if you have a large format printer, you can print those out in poster size, and they are gorgeous, and you can hang them right up on your wall. So the maps are a great thing to use if you have a large format printer.
Erin, if someone had pictures from their family history that would be relevant to any one of these areas in American memory, how would someone go about getting those resources to the Library of Congress?
Well, part of what we're doing is an extension of our project is called Leave a Legacy. And we're actually working with primarily rural communities here in Colorado, but now we're spreading into Arizona and New Mexico to get students involved in digital preservation. And we're starting to work with the Library of Congress where we can help groups set up their own sites of these digital sources, and then the Library of Congress would be able to link to them as a portal. So they're definitely interested in things like that, but they definitely want to work with large organized groups to do such a thing. You wouldn't want to just send your items to the Library of Congress. They would probably get, it's covered in boxes and things in the back rooms. So, but that's part of what our grant is all about.
Great, thank you.
So Erin, we have about a little over 15 minutes left.
Okay.
Is this a...
Yeah, let me go. Can you see my web browser still, or did I actually stop sharing it when I stopped sharing it, or you can? Oh, you can?
Yeah, we can see it through the application sharing. Yeah.
All right, I'm just going to show you a few quick little things. Right here under Resources For, if you go to Kids and Family, you'll find a lot of sources and interesting little items that are created for younger students. So for instance, one of the best ones is this America's Library. It's kind of like a nice digital encyclopedia that pulls in the primary sources, has you know, 3rd, 4th grade kind of text, and also has like fun flash games that kids can do with primary sources. So if you work with young kids, definitely check out America's Library. There's some other, Today in History is always fun because you can instantly pull up with your class what happened today in history. And there's a few other neat things on there. But this down here, this teacher page, has got some really interesting things on it. And most of what teachers are going to want is under the learning page. Obviously, you can see they have American Memory, Today in History there as well. But if I go to the learning page, there's a few things you'd want to check out. One is lesson plans. Now, right now, the library only has a certain number of lesson plans. Part of what these grants are doing is we are collecting, as our teachers learn to use primary sources in their classroom, we're collecting those lesson plans and giving them back to the Library of Congress. So this will expand greatly over the next few years. Right now, most of the lesson plans are, oh, I'm sorry, Cindy.
Go ahead, I'll ask my question in a minute.
Most of the lesson plans on here are social studies and language arts based. Like that one I showed you that was math that just came out. We're really trying to push people to look at primary sources in all content areas. And so that's especially where I think you'll really see some lessons added is in areas like math and foreign languages and just in a variety of content areas that most people don't think of using primary sources within. Features and activities has some nice fun little things to look at. Collection connections though, this is, I'm going to go to the index. Collection connections are resources for teachers that connect to those American Memory collections. So for instance, down here, if it says summary only, there's no teaching resources. But if it's summary and teaching resources, that means that this has teaching resources that go along with that collection in American Memory. So remember all those collections we went through. A lot of them have teaching resources that you can get to that are going to help you use that collection with your students. Community Center is a really, did you have a question, Cindy?
No, I just said great. That's very helpful.
Okay. Community Center is, and they're actually in the process of changing this teacher website so it's much easier to navigate. Because Community Center has some great items on it, but it doesn't make sense. What they have are these, and hopefully people can see this. Squeeze my browser. Under these featured contents they have, every once in a while you'll find this where it says, like this one says, Japanese Internment Primary Source Set. Now those are really neat if you're going to use that content at all with your classes. What it is, the primary source sets were chosen by experts at the Library of Congress as being representative of the best primary sources regarding that subject. And they all come with a teacher guide. Not only do they come with a teacher guide and the primary sources, but way at the bottom, which hopefully will not disappear off your screen, They come with these analysis tools that help your students. Most of them are like graphic organizers. So for instance, if you wanted your students to look at a map, you could also give them this graphic organizer to help them analyze that map. Or music analysis tools, poetry, and this is just a general one. So the primary source sets are really nice in that they're expert-picked sources with some really great teacher additions, and they are creating these all the time. So there's like 3 they have sitting there that the IT people at the library haven't gotten put up yet. So teachers really like primary source sets. If you are a media specialist or librarian, we always suggest that you actually print the entire primary source set, put it in a 3-ring binder, and have it at your school where teachers can actually just look at it and look at all the sources and look at the teacher guide. That's really helpful for encouraging teachers to use these. I think there's 9 of them now. So there's Jim Crow, an American primary source set, Thanksgiving primary source set, which is really targeted at young students, Dust Bowl primary source set, Women's Suffrage primary source set. So there's a few of them on there, and like I said, they're building them all the time. Under professional development here, you can find just, some job aids and things like that that will help you search the Library of Congress. And so that's the learning page. And remember, to get there, you go from the front page of the Library of Congress, you go to Teachers, and then right now it's right here, the learning page.
So Erin, you mentioned that through the grant you are in the process, and you being the Colorado Rural Partnership as well as all the other grantees collecting the lesson plans. Is there a method if we had teachers through our classes if we wanted to contribute lesson plans? Is there a method for doing that?
Probably the best person to talk to for that would be our director, Ann. And let me just talk a minute about our grant really quickly before I let you go. This is our website, and I don't know, it's www.unco.edu/primary sources. I'll paste it in here so everyone can see it. Oh, I tried to paste it in there. There it goes. And in fact, I forgot about this. Okay. I tried to pull up a different website that I created for tonight, but I'm not getting that. I might have Cindy email that out to you later. From our website, if you go to Regional Project, that is how we're being commissioned to work with Wyoming and the Four Corners area. And we're actually granting mini grants to schools, colleges of education, museums, libraries. So one of the best things to do if you really wanted to work with primary sources would be to get together a group of people, and you could get a mini grant right now, which is really cool. And that would give you not only, the resources at the Library of Congress, but it would give you some funding to work with to actually get some neat projects going. And our director, Ann Bell, is going to be headed out there soon to talk to people if they want to reach her. Does that kind of answer your question, Cindy?
Yes, it does, yes, and as she'll be attending the Southwest Technology Conference at NAU towards the middle or third week in May, and so great.
This is where this website I'm putting in the chat is when I just set up, it's got a handout on why use primary sources and a little American Memory Overview job aid, because it's easy to forget. And then also this right here, get your school or program involved, become part of our regional project. It's just a little note that the director put together for the people in your area to look at. And it has her contact information as far as being able to reach her and discuss options.
Excellent. So is there, I'd like to, if there's any questions for Erin, and Erin, is there anything else you were hoping to show us?
No, I feel like I threw enough at you. Because there's a lot, unfortunately.
There is, but you did a great overview. So I think
Thank
it's
you.
definitely a synopsis of and to get folks started and trying to understand both the quirks as well as how much valuable information is out there.
Right.
So
right.
let's open it up. Is any questions for Erin? We have just about 5 minutes left. Thanks, Elizabeth.
It is bottomless, and they keep adding.
Great, great. Can you type, if you have, I'd love to hear any ideas folks have about how they might use some of the resources they saw tonight, or if they have used the Library of Congress already.
And I do feel bad because I really have to show you how to get to the sources first. I could do another whole presentation on cool activities that bring primary sources and our cross content into your classroom. But of course, that would take another hour and a half at least. So, and I don't know, Cindy, if you'd want me to try to get some of those to you in paper format that you could distribute later.
Yeah, if you had anything, I would love to be able to distribute that, and I'm hoping that you might do this again for us, if not this semester, maybe in the fall, and I did open this up for a whole program, so the folks here, even if you don't happen to be in one of my classes in the fall, I'll make sure word gets out to everybody.
Okay, great, great.
This would be a great resource for 567 as well, Cynthia.
Yes, true.
I wish I would have had it last semester.
Exactly. All right, good. It looks like some good ideas. Use of maps, the geography.
I also found it interesting. I'll be teaching assistive technology next semester, or in the fall, and there's some great resources I can share with my students for that course as well.
I thought it was your comment, Erin, earlier about how the students had to typed in wagon, covered wagon, had to keep going. What a valuable lesson for them as well, and learning how to search and, in this case, how librarians think.
Yeah, and I should actually mention this because they are primary sources. There are some things on the site that some people would find inappropriate for certain ages to look at. So you do take a bit of a risk as a teacher if you're letting students just search the site. I'll just give you one example. I was sitting down with a first grade teacher, and we were going through the Edison collection to find a film, an early film of firefighters, because he has some great ones. And we typed in firefighters, and we're just previewing the films, and we pulled up a film, a video that was a firing squad, and it was real footage, and it was pretty shocking. So you definitely want to think before you just set your students loose on the site. There's certainly nothing like, pornographic on there, but depending on the ages of your students, they might run into things that you wouldn't normally expose them to.
Good caution.
Yes.
Because I would imagine firing squad could come up under fire that a younger student could put in.
It was titled really inappropriately, was part of the problem. But and someone just mentioned science. They have all of Alexander Graham Bell's journals, for instance. So you can actually go through, and he kept this daily diary of his mostly mistakes. And it's fun to read and see how many mishaps these scientists have before they actually stumble upon anything great. And the excitement that he expresses in his journal when something works is incredible. So there's definitely even sources that directly address science out there.
All right, well, we've come to the end of our session. Are there any final comments or questions? Well, I'd just like to thank Erin very much. I really appreciate all your time and sharing all this great information with us. And I hope you will be willing to do it again for our program at a future date as well. So
definitely.
Great. Especially now that you've got the tool all figured out.
I know. No, this was my guinea pig journey. I know. Okay.
Exactly.
Thanks for putting up with me.
You did a great job, Erin.
Thank you.
All right, and thanks everyone for joining us this evening. Have a great night.
Well, I'm signing off, Cindy.
All right, thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.
Definitely.